Hi everybody, welcome to Monday. Gonna be kind of three parts to this video. One, typical, after I do the main topic, I will give you a boss fight update. This is a big one, including a prospective air date, so watch to the end. First part of this video will be the topic. The second part of this video will be a call for submissions for next week. I'm going to start banking stuff for next week. So the feedback you give for the second part of this video, because I'm going to have a different shout out topic for each video so I can do next week's videos pre-recorded, because I need a break. And between Christmas and New Year's, granted, Christmas is the 24th. Christmas Eve is the 24th. That's Thursday. Friday is actually Christmas. So there'd be a Feedback Friday. Okay, we'll do a Joy to the World thing. But I'm going to pre-record next week. I'm going to do it Friday, and it's just done. So I have to preload the feedback for the week, and then we'll figure out what happens Monday. I don't know. After Christmas. Right now, I'm just more on boss fight after this. But okay, so I have been following the Cyberpunk launch because I have been fascinated by the whole phenomenon surrounding this game. If you like this sort of stuff, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. The thing about the phenomenon surrounding Cyberpunk is there seemed to be this pre-launch belief that somehow the world needed to be protected or saved from the big bad people at CD Projekt Red and these reporters in finding these picayune things to get upset about were the ones to do it. And so people were understandably defensive of the property when it came out. This was a test because in the past, when this stuff's happened, the end product has been really good, really solid. And so there's been very little to complain about in terms of the finished product. There were some game-breaking bugs in The Witcher 3. I had to stop playing for a while, but the overall quality of the game was quite good once the patch was fixed. And I will say The Witcher 3 bug fix took a lot longer than some of the bug fixes. I mean, the PS4 and PC hotfix dropped on Saturday. It was a huge one. I actually had errors with it because there wasn't enough hard drive space on my computer. This game at one point was taking up 150 gigs of my hard drive. Once it did the patch, it shrunk down a lot, but I'm like, wow, why is this game so big? I had to delete some other games to make space. I had to delete Doom Eternal, guys, to make space for Cyberpunk. I'm freaking sad. But the very fact that Cyberbug2077 was trending over the weekend and gamers were not so identity invested in this game that they couldn't call out bullshit is very, very telling. Because this tells me I should show you evidence. You don't have to look it up. Where is it? For people who don't believe me, see Cyberbug2077 trends as players share their Cyberbug2077 bugs. Sorry, Cyberpunk. It's going to be Cyberbug2077 forever in my brain because it's just too catchy. Now, if you guys watched my Twitch stream on Thursday, I encountered some of these bugs. The bulk of the bugs seem to be, I should transfer and upload this bit of footage so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But it seems to be the accessories, the hair, the clothes, the genitals. Sometimes they appear, sometimes they don't appear, sometimes they appear through each other. So whatever system they've been using to have those add-ons is not working. I experienced it where I spent a lot of time with my character that looked like Rihanna with her space buns, And the first time I got to look at the space buns in a mirror, the character was just like bald like Ayanna Presley, right? Like hot bald, like I said, like Ayanna Presley, but you know, bald, totally bald. Not the hair I equipped, not the headpiece I equipped. And apparently when you equip hats, first of all, your default hairstyle goes away. So Senran Kagura, this is not. But also, it just doesn't read in the mirror. Which does not affect how the game plays, right? I have heard crashes, especially on the PS4. And man, of all the versions of the game that they should have made sure sung, it was the PS4 version. I was more prepared for bugs on PC because there's always bugs on PC, but it's bad. And I'll tell you, a lot of the discussions I've been having with other gamers in light of this admitted false start for this game franchise. When your console version of the game is borkity borked, you got problems. And this brought two things to mind. One, the biggest comment, the most common comment I have heard from people when I've talked to them privately about this is proof positive that crunch does not work. You know, oh, you crunch to get the game out. Well, it's dog shit. So what did that do? And the overall game isn't, don't get me wrong. It's that this game was just not ready for prime time. And, you know, one thing I think is good is that people beat the crap out of Assassin's Creed Unity because it was buggy. And again, mostly cosmetic bugs, nothing game-breaking except in some circumstances. But it was just sort of a thing that this is what people do. But I've also had very interesting conversations about, you know, my critiques of the game and characterizations that seem a bit off, mostly the early battle. I haven't put a ton of time into it, but the early battle taunts where it's like everything's just, you know, a string of expletives instead of anything kind of clever, any new slang that they can put into Cyberpunk. And one person says, well, that makes it realistic though, but most people were like, yeah, it's what a 14-year-old thinks is cool. And this is led me to two thoughts. And I'll try to be as brief as possible. One, the game community doesn't need saviors. The gaming industry needs a good hard look in the mirror about its labor practices and expectations for product. But the gaming community does not need saving. It doesn't need savers. It doesn't need saving. We are figuring stuff out, thank you very much. And the best thing I think people who want more inclusive and diverse games should do is reward companies that do it right and stop with this ridiculous picayune criticism. People aren't listening, and it doesn't make people defend a game more, or it did make people defensive of Cyberpunk, but people were like, oh, this is kind of crap anyway, right? I admit it was sort of like seeing a celebrity when I finally saw that you know, problematic billboard in the game, like, oh my God, that's the billboard. I've finally seen it. Oh, wow. And I mean, in context, every billboard has something offensive about it, right? Like the artist in the game was totally right. This is not an issue. The somewhat sophomoric elements of the game and the bugginess of it, this is something we can talk about because, believe it or not, the fact that there were female artists on the game, like, totally shines through. The nail art and the hairstyles and the makeup, all top notch. Even the way the clothes fit on women, top freaking notch, man. Like, do that again, please. Whoever those artists are that were responsible for that. I know one is female because she's the one that got in trouble for the billboard, but they helped you. CD Projekt Red, if anybody's watching this, they helped you. That is a major standout. Very good, right, in the game. But the general consensus from the gamers I've spoken to, which are the core audience for video games, like the core consumers of video games, are that crunch doesn't work. Why do people keep trying to make it work? We would rather a game be delayed multiple times than crunch. Strangely, the two biggest culprits of it this time around, and I am not trying to compare the two. The most high-profile culprits. There we go. I'm not trying to make the transgressions equivalent. But CD Projekt Red, high-profile crunch on Cyberpunk. Naughty Dog, crunch on The Last of Us 2. And the gaming community has not treated these two games differently. Both are like, both were treated as, yeah, crunch is bullshit. We don't like crunch. Crunch doesn't make for a better product. I'm going to judge the game for what it is. I'm going to judge the corporate practices of the company as something else. That is what I heard in terms of both games. The gaming industry treated the two very differently. The gaming industry decided to lavish a whole bunch of awards on a studio with high staff turnover and a ton of crunch. The gaming community, gamers, fans, can do nothing about that. And that's all I'm going to say about the Game Awards, because they're so predictable at this point that they've gotten as bad as the Oscars. Though I was very happy to see that Ghost of Tsushima won the fan award for one, which is quite frankly the only one that really matters. But I was also happy to see it win art direction. And I'm going to tell you why, because it ties into the crunch thing. One of the things that made people kind of count out Ghost of Tsushima internally before it was released was the age of the game engine and how they hadn't, reworked the game to run on newer software. And the fact that a game with that criticism won for art direction, the fact that, yes, it showed its age, it was still undeniably breathtakingly beautiful, should say something to these AAA developers. Lock in your tech early enough that you're not worrying so much about wowing people with, the latest bells and whistles. Build something functional that is fun to play. And if you can do that and you've got time to spare, by all means, throw in things like ray tracing and all that stuff. But unless you can get the basics down, don't go for that big, gymnastics flippy Simone Biles thing if you can't stick the landing. And this is something that I've heard consistently from gamers over and over and over and over and over again. I get that it is a big... Techies like tech. I get that. I'm as guilty of that as the next person. But I recognize, do what you do well before you try to do a lot. That's a big rule of mine when it comes to design of any project. I violated that with BOSSFIGHT, and look how long the thing is taking to make. There you go. Self-effacing. Yeah, I think that the game community has been consistent. We're practicing what we preach. We will work out these issues of inclusion if we are given the space and the quiet to do it. Really, the urge is there. People, a big thing about gamers that is misunderstood is that the reason being a real gamer is so important is because the only thing that gamers want to matter is your skill for games, or barring that, at least your passion for them. That's the only thing that matters. everything else, people want to find a way to opt you in. Because the one thing that most gamers have in common is feeling like they don't belong. That's why I don't understand these op-ed writers who think they have to save gaming from itself by screeching. Gaming doesn't need it. We've proven it. You know, all these woke games, this, you know, the we're going to show you violence is bad. Gamers know violence is bad. You know, I keep watching The Last of Us 2 sales. There have been no updates since August. Whereas Ghost of Tsushima, as of November, 5 million in sales. So we know Tsushima's sold 5 million. We only know The Last of Us 2 has sold 4 million. And do you remember back when I started tracking this stuff, I said that my prediction was that Tsushima was going to catch up to and lap Last of Us 2 in long-term full-price sales. These aren't sales. These aren't discounted versions of the game. These are people buying new copies. Because don't forget, like resales aren't counted in those figures. So people are going out and buying this game. They've sold more games beyond its release window than they sold in its release window. And its release window was a record breaker for a new IP first party PlayStation 4 game. This matters because when industry analysts are looking at trends, long tail, it happened with the original Dragon Age too. Slow start, though you can't say Tsushima was a slow start. That game was a success on every metric. It is the perfect game in terms of sales, okay? Started off strong. New IPs are tough because people don't know really what it is, right? Started off strong. Just kept going. It's a marathoner, not a sprinter. And based on everything we can see, and again, the silence from PlayStation speaks volumes because they're crying to the rafters, like singing from the rooftops. The sales data on Tsushima, Last of Us 2 was all hype, no post-release hype. Sales spiked based on hype, crashed afterwards. Huge drop-off. And it was about this level of sales I predicted based on the numbers they were doing and the drop-off that I said that, you know, Tsushima was going to overtake The Last of Us 2 by about this mark. Now, top PlayStation titles can go on to sell 10 million, 15 million copies, right? So Tsushima is on its way. The only thing that might hurt it is people, you know, moving over to the PlayStation 5, but the shortages of the PlayStation 5 means people are still going to want stuff to play on their PS4. I mean, that happens with all console cycles. So gamers backed a game with strong female characters, no white people in it whatsoever, with an all Asian cast, with LGBTQ plus representation. Okay, and they backed it because it was a good game, right? They didn't give a shit, and it didn't have ray tracing. It didn't have all these new things. It wasn't a PS5 launch title. It was just a good, functional game that did everything really, really, really well. It was pretty. It played like a breeze. The characters were excellent. Plenty of strong women. Plenty of strong older women. Strong, interesting older women with flaws and quirks. Like, you don't do better than this. Critically ignored. Absolutely critically ignored. Hype ignored for the most part because everyone was distracted by Last of Us 2, which was pushed back. And that's the one thing I will say about pushbacks for big games. When a console game is pushed back like that, it impacts the calendar of other games. And that's why I'm so happy about how Tsushima did, because it seemed to have everything against it. Sony put an early push on it, and then stopped paying attention to it for whatever reason, which made me worried it was going to be another Beyond Two Souls. right? But it wasn't. It was a good game. And to me, it is my console game of the year. I think Satisfactory might be my PC game of the year, which is very surprising. But oh my god, that game's fun. But yeah, Tsushima is my console game of the year. Definitely. Hands down. Because Cyberpunk's been a bit meh for me so far. And we did say that Cyberpunk was either going to be game of the year or a massive disappointment. I don't think that's true. I will admit that was an overstatement on my part. It seems to be people are being fair to it and judging it for what it is, even if it didn't quite live up to the hype. Again, gamers don't need saving. We need some education in places. We need some information to chew on. We need facts. We need data. We don't need saving. We don't need disciplining. We don't need civilizing. We're doing really good. We're doing better than the people that claim to represent us in the media. Thank you very much. All right. So that's done. Boss fight. Call out for topics for next week. This is going to be real simple. I put it out on Twitter. I started it on Twitter, but I thought maybe some people would be comfortable answering in YouTube comments in a way they weren't on Twitter. What insecurity do you have that you don't talk about because you're too embarrassed or you're too afraid of a bad reaction? Mainly. That seems to be the bulk of the feedback on Twitter. That people are so afraid about how other people are going to react that they don't talk about the things that they're insecure about and maybe holding them back. And therefore, they're not able to grow as a person in this regard. I'm very interested in this based on the feedback you guys have given me over this year. So very interested in your answers in that. Again, won't be Feedback Friday next week. Feedback Friday will be a response to the main topics of the videos. So, Boss Fight. Boss Fight episode 3 will, all being equal, premiere on December 23rd. The captioning will probably not be done by then, but I want to get it out. The only thing left to do right now is the screen viz for the studio segments and an audio pass, audio balance, cleanup, all that stuff. Now, the reason I need a week for that, one, day job stuff, but also audio passes, anytime you're doing rendering or output, strange things can happen. After Effects really acted up on me over the weekend, in part because of the Cyberpunk, my hard drive. But I don't like to skimp on audio pass. I'm not confident in it. I'm not good at it. Talk about insecurity. So I like to take my time on it because rough video is one thing. If people can't hear someone speak because music is drowning out or something's muffled or something like that, that ain't good. So audio's the stuff that by nature of it happens last, but I like to have some extra time. That and the constant upload struggle is real. So I want to give myself extra time in case there's problems with output. There can be little errors with stuff and upload, because YouTube loves to be a pain in the ass. The only thing that's a bit TBA is the end credits pony dance, because it rained this weekend and it's probably gonna rain next weekend, and so I'm gonna have to do that on green screen instead of outside, because all the beautiful lovely snow I wanted to use outside is gone now, and it's replaced by just dead leaves, mud, and in my yard dog poop. So we're not gonna do that out there this time. We're gonna do it inside. All right. Okay. Thanks everybody. Thanks for watching and interested in your feedback. Oh, right. Gotta do my closer. If you like this kind of stuff, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching.